Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make the grain-free pie crust. It's really easy, the technique is really simple, and let's get started. First, you're going to start with 1 3/4 cup of blanched almond flour. If you're measuring it by weight, it's about 2 3/4 ounces. To that, you're going to add 3 tablespoons of coconut flour and 1 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of organic Trader Joe stevia. You can also use any other type of granular sweetener, just sweeten it to taste. So we're going to mix the ingredients well. And I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of finely ground coconut sugar. I grind it up in my little magic bullet so that it's a finer powder, and this just gives it that little extra sweetness that I wanted, and using the granular sweetener doesn't contribute to any extra moisture that may affect the pie crust from turning out. So we're going to mix well. We're going to make sure we see no lumps of coconut flour, baking powder, or the coconut sugar. To this, we're going to add 1 egg white, or approximately 2 tablespoons of egg white, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. I use my homemade, and 1/4 cup of salted butter that I've melted. So we're going to mix the ingredients well, and once it starts to come together a little bit, you can switch out utensils. And I'm going to switch to a wooden spoon just to make sure we get everything blended well. Okay, and you see it's a pretty stiff dough, and that's exactly what you want. Okay, and I'm just going to taste. It's perfect. You don't want it super sweet, but that little bit of sweetener really helps bring out the flavor of the pie crust. And a traditional wheat pie crust, really there's a little sweetness that comes from the wheat. Next, we're going to lay out a large piece of parchment paper. This is actually one that I've already used, and that's okay. I just fold it up, and I'm going to place this in the center. And you're just going to make it into a ball. And then I'm going to take plastic wrap and cover the pie crust. Okay, I'm going to get my rolling pin and just going to roll out the dough. I actually use the saran wrap as kind of a guide to how wide to make it. And when this happens, when you see it squeeze out the side, and this is what I do, I just place it back inside of or underneath the saran wrap, and I roll it out some more. So let me just reset here. Now you can turn the dough like you would a traditional pie crust, and I'll do that some at the end, but for me this is easiest because this crust is a lot more fragile than a traditional pie crust. Okay, so again, very easy. Put this over here. And you're going to roll it out until it's about 11 inches, 12 inches in diameter. Okay, so I'm going to take this little piece here, and this will give you a big enough dough for your base of your pie crust. And I know this seems a little tedious moving these pieces. I'm having to be a little careful because of how I've got my camera set up. I'm kind of limited on space, which is why I'm doing this. You do want the pie crust to be even thickness. You don't want some places to be thicker than others, just like a traditional pie crust. Just even pressure will help that happen. Okay, I think I'm going to move one more piece here, and we'll call it done. Okay. So now we have our pie crust. It's about even thickness. And we're going to grab our pie plate. This is a 10-inch. It's actually one someone gave me with the apple pie recipe. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the saran wrap or plastic wrap, and I'm going to invert into my pie pan. Okay. Real simple. You want to kind of press it down before you start removing the saran wrap, or excuse me, the parchment. Okay, and the edges are going to, the extras are kind of going to break off on its own, which is a good thing. So I'm just going to carefully, but not really carefully, because of the thickness I have the dough, it's pretty sturdy. You can always patch up any holes that you may have. And I actually did pretty good. Not too many holes. So I'm just going to come here. If I see any holes, I'm going to patch them, which I really don't. There's one little one there. So I'm just going to put some of the extra dough. And I'm just going so I'm just going to come here. You can use a knife to cut the edges, or just use your fingers like I did. And I want to make sure I go to the edge, because I'm going to create a little decorative edge. And this is also going to be an indicator to when the pie crust is done, which kind of helps. And any of the extra dough, don't worry, you can make cookies with it, you can do anything you want. So there's really no waste. So I'm just going to come and fill in all the spaces. So you see, this is really easy. The key is just having the right amount of ingredients, the right tools, a little patience, which if you've ever made a homemade pie crust, it requires lots of patience. Usually there's a little cursing, but I think this was pretty easy. Okay. And this is going to be great for one of your no-bake pies, which I've used for my chocolate silk pie, which is delicious. The crust really holds up well. Okay. So now that I have my crust in my pie plate, I'm just going to come around and make just a little, use my finger and just make a little indentions. I wouldn't use a fork, the fork method here, because it's going to make the edges too thin and it will possibly burn. but I'm just coming here and just using my finger and pushing the dough in just to make a cute little edge. And you see, no tools required, just a little patience. And when this starts to brown, that's going to be a good indicator that your pie crust is ready. So let's see how easy this is. Just push into the dough. Again, don't worry about all the little extra crust you have. Make a cookie. If you have enough, you can actually roll it out and make a little mini pie, like a fried pie, my favorite. Okay, almost there. You see, it's pretty simple. It's actually better if you push into it because you don't lose any of that pie crust. Almost there. This crust is really sturdy and it's going to hold up well after we bake it. Okay. And there is our finished pie crust that we're going to put into a preheated oven at 325 degrees and cook for about 15 to 17 minutes until the edges start to turn brown. And there you have it, a beautiful pie crust right out of the oven. You see the slightly brown edges, and so you're going to want to let that cool until it's room temperature, and then fill it with your favorite non-bake filling, such as a custard pie,